You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
Everybody, that music means it is Tuesday. Time to roll out the old hot seat again and pick the brains of some folks from throughout the world of options and derivatives for you, the listener out there. My name, of course, Mark Longo, coming at you from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network that, in spite of our best efforts, 18 plus years and continuing to grow, 3 new shows just in the last 6 plus months, 1 hitting just in the last couple of weeks. So make sure wherever you're listening to this, you're subscribed to the full network. That will get you well over a dozen programs, usually 2 or 3 hitting you a day these days. So no shortage of options-oriented content. And then, of course, if you think you're ready to go above and beyond, make sure you head on over to the pro, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. That will get you a couple of additional shows, live streams, so you could join us for live events like this, all sorts of exclusives and giveaways as well. So theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more as we learn who's joining us in the hot seat this Tuesday. I'm pleased to welcome on a newcomer to the program and indeed to the network. He is Abhishek Fatehpuria, the Vice President of Product Management over there at Robinhood. Abhishek, welcome to the Options Insider Radio Network.
Thanks for having me. Didn't know it was called the hot seat, though.
Yeah, it's going to get a little hot, a little spicy, so get ready over there. You know, we've had your buddy Steve Quirk on a few times, mostly at live conferences. He survived, so I think you can handle it, Abhishek. If Steve can handle it, I think you can handle it. What do you think?
I hope so. I mean, Q's pretty smooth, so.
Smooth customer indeed. Well, Abhishek, as we like to do with all of our first-timers here on the network, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a bit of an overview of your background in the world of options and derivatives, as well as what it is that the Vice President of Product Management does day to day over there at Robinhood.
Yeah, so I've been at Robinhood for about 9 years now. I work on our product team for our brokerage products, which means that we get to design, figure out what we want to build for our most active customers across options, stock trading, margin, and all the other products we offer, like retirement accounts and stuff. But options has definitely been a big focus of ours for a long time. And it's been really cool to see the product grow and, evolve over time.
And how did you become the options product guy over there? Do you have a background in options, or did Steve just say to you, hey, you're the options guy now?
It's actually really interesting. When we started working on options at Robinhood, I was actually on the engineering team, but a lot of us, we hired some experts externally, but a lot of us were learning options for the first time. And actually the first person who worked on the options product, he told a story about like the way he learned options before we started designing the product was just watching a lot of YouTube videos on how people trade options. So we like really approached the design with like sort of a very fresh sort of new mind which is maybe why our product looks different and has been so transformational to the industry. A lot of us were new to it.
Well, as you mentioned, it is a fairly new offering for you folks over there at Robin. You only really have had options for a few years now, but as you mentioned, it does seem to be resonating with the folks. You've managed to carve out a pretty sizable chunk of the options market in a relatively short period of time. Last quarter, you guys reporting north of $250 million, a record for options revenue. What do you think is driving that growth? Why are people adopting the options platform over there at Robinhood versus some of the other choices out there?
Yeah. I mean, in general, retail trading has grown a lot, as I'm sure you know, and more individuals want control over their finances. I think the big story, though, has been the growing part that mobile has to play. And we've always designed products mobile first. We want to focus on what does the interface look like on a customer's phone. And when they're on their phone, they want interfaces that are thoughtfully designed, built for the phone device. And that's something, we specialize in. So while we have built more advanced tools like Robinhood Legend, which is our advanced desktop trader platform, we've built more advanced products on our mobile platform. At our heart and soul, where we design mobile first. And, that's been probably the fastest growing segment of options trading. So I think that's been a big recipe for success for us. And then I think the other thing is we're commission free on normal options. We don't charge contract fees aside from the regulatory fees. And then on index options, we have one of the best rates around.
You think it also speaks to a little bit of the evolution of the retail options trading customer in particular? Pre-Robinhood, certainly pre-COVID, and definitely in the early days of this network, the conventional wisdom was that the options customer was, a certain age, a certain level of capitalization, a certain level of sophistication. And the Robinhood clientele didn't meet any of those barriers to entry out there. But of course, certainly post-COVID, we've seen a democratization of the option space, people trading a lot of different ways, even with smaller accounts. Do you think a lot of that has helped to really drive a lot of the flow, in particular on the Robinhood options platform?
I think it's a bit of that. And then we also have some larger accounts that come to our product for the design, or they come to our product for the lower fees. But I mean, like you said, right, the options are so flexible. If you want to take on more risk, they let you do that. If you want to generate income by selling calls or selling puts, it lets you do that. So I think it's a tool that can be useful to anyone if it's made accessible to them. They have the right tools, they have the right education, as long as they're eligible. So, we think we've really unlocked that.
Well, let's talk about that unlocking process a little bit. As I mentioned, Robinhood, kind of a newer entry to the options space. And we all know the options client at the end of the day, probably the most demanding customer on the brokerage side. They demand a lot of bells and whistles, and they want them right now or they're going to jump ship. That's just the way the options customer tends to roll. Let's talk about your platform a bit. What upgrades, what tweaks, what improvements have you made specifically to cater and keep those hardcore options traders? Because they all know they could start on Robinhood, but as they graduate, get more sophisticated, if the tools aren't there, and then they're going to jump ship, Abhishek.
Yeah, no, we've been investing a lot. Last year at our first Hood Summit, we launched Robinhood Legend, which is our advanced desktop or web trading platform. Since then, we've continued to evolve our options product. So we went from having a simpler single-sided chain to having a side-by-side chain on mobile that I think is probably the most elegant, well-designed, seamless side-by-side chain available on mobile. We've been launching more simulator tools, so letting people simulate their potential returns before they place a trade, after they place a trade. And I think what our customers love is whenever we roll out these new features and products, we always do it with a Robinhood flair. The products feel special. The features feel very delightful and and simpler to use than what they feel like on other platforms. And I think they appreciate that. And they actually find it difficult to use other platforms after they've used Robinhood because of how great our design is.
So initially, you just had one half of the chain. It was just calls and it was just puts on mobile, and now you've expanded that.
Switch between them.
Okay, that's a huge. That sounds very simple, but that's a huge quality of life improvement. I think for a lot of options traders, they're used to seeing the whole chain right at their fingertips.
Yeah, we've done stuff like if you build a spread, you can just like hold it down and drag it up and down on the chain, and then it updates the P&L and the simulated returns in real time. And what we noticed is on other platforms, you have to like jump between screens to tweak little things here and there. So, one thing that we spend a lot of time on is how do we make it mobile native, not like take what's on the desktop, scrunch it up, and put it on your phone. How do we like leverage the power of mobile, what you can do with your fingers to make the product really great?
Well, you mentioned the multi-leg trade. Let me just get into that for a second, because there's a few litmus tests I like to do with all different brokers to kind of gauge their functionality and how our audience is going to respond to that. One of that is the seemingly simple quality of life thing of the ease and utility of entering a multi-leg spread. Some brokers still to this day, I know it sounds wild, you have to go in, you click initiate on one leg of the trade, and then you have to manually populate, let's say a butterfly with 3 legs. You have to manually choose each strike in each leg. You mentioned you can kind of slide your finger up and down the chain and it'll populate the prices for you. So is it fairly simple? Can I go into a drop down and select, let's say, butterfly, and it'll populate most of the legs for me and update them as I click around?
I mean, we have a few different ways to do it. So like if you want to just go into a strategy, we have a strategy builder, which if you choose like you said, a butterfly, it'll take, I actually don't use that product personally. But we have a strategy builder. What I like to do is use our new side-by-side chain, just click the legs I want in the side-by-side chain. It groups them up, pushes up sort of a sheet, and builds the strategy as I go. The best analogy that I have for it is it's like a shopping cart on an e-commerce website. So you just like pick your legs, it shows you the strategy you've selected, it shows you the P&L, and then you can tweak it just by dragging and dropping.
I like that. So it's intelligent enough to know if I click around a little bit, I'm trying to craft some sort of trade or some sort of strategy out there. I like that. I want to get to the mobile in a second.
I'll have to show you a demo sometime.
I have played around with it in the past, but I like to give a lot of our listeners may not have, so I like to make sure we set the scene for them out there. But you mentioned Legend. I want to get to the mobile in a second. Let's start with the Legend. That is, as you mentioned, kind of the desktop offering. Is it safe to say that is the offering for the hardcore options user? Becoming to Robinhood and you live on desktop and you like to really look at all the bells and whistles of the platform, then Legend is the platform for you?
Yeah, that's what we wanted to be. We rolled it out last year. We've been spending a lot of time making it better. We have a huge slate of improvements coming to it in about a month at our second annual Hood Summit. And yeah, it's for the customers who are active traders who want a lot of real estate. It supports multiple screens. It's super seamless. I love using it personally. It's got a chain. It's got a chart with over 90 indicators. You can look at your watch list, orders, trade directly from the chart. So it's got a lot of the bells and whistles. And what I love about options traders is that they're always giving us feedback. So we always know what to build next. So we have a lot of stuff coming.
That's both a blessing and a curse, Abhishek. They will tell you what they want, but they will also tell you what they want very loudly. So you have to make sure you're listening.
It's a blessing. We don't have to guess as much.
Yeah, that's right. They will let you know very easily what they're looking for out there. Well, one of the things they're looking for is charting. And you mentioned kind of mobile first. It sounds like you guys, I mean, we talk to a lot of brokers here, and one of the big challenges a lot of them have is, as you mentioned, all the functionality you're baking into the Legends platform, taking some approximation of that to mobile. One of the hardest things to do is charting. Make charting functional. You have a big desktop. Maybe you have multiple screens on your desktop, and now you're squeezing that down to your iPhone screen. How do you approximate the same level of functionality? But sounds like you folks are attempting to crack it over there at Robinhood. What are you offering on the mobile charting front now, Abhishek?
Yeah, I mean, actually, pretty recently, and we're still in the process of rolling out, but we took our charting capabilities that are on Legend and brought them to mobile. So you can access the same indicators. You can access, I think it's 90 plus now. You can do trading from the chart just by dragging and dropping, cancel and replace orders by dragging and dropping, look at different intervals, look at different spans, all in the mobile app. I think what we like to do is, like, when we're bringing it to mobile, we like to think about, like, what is going to make this work on mobile. And I think a new thing we've added to our toolbox is, how do we make Legend and the mobile charts work seamlessly together? So now what happens is, if I build a study on web on Legend and add a bunch of indicators and save it, I can just load it up on my mobile phone and it works pretty seamlessly. So one thing that we're trying to do is bring all the features to mobile, make it great, but also make it work seamlessly with Legend. One thing we've learned with a lot of our Legend customers is that they use Legend to chart, but then they still trade on their mobile device because they like using both platforms together.
So it's kind of like a Netflix. You could start the movie on your desktop and then pick it up on the go. You can start your charting on Legend, and then as you're on your commute to work, you could finish your charting and your analysis and maybe put the trade on, Abhishek.
Yeah. Don't drive and chart, though.
Not while driving. No.
Yeah, we're not endorsing drive and charting.
Hopefully it's some sort of passive commuting that you're doing out there. One of the other things that caught my eye, it seems kind of interesting, is your new pre-trade visualization tool. We've seen a lot of risk management functionality that comes post-trade. A lot of brokers will say, oh, you just sold this put, or you did this iron condor, or whatever you might be doing, and here's how it looks. Here's the potential scenarios, P&L graph, all that stuff. But you've already put the trade on at that point. It's kind of a little bit too late. So I'm glad to see you're actually giving them that glimpse before they hit the trade button. Walk us through this pre-trade visualization tool. How does it work, and what can I do with it?
Yeah, that one's pretty cool. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying. You pick your legs for the trade, or if it's a single leg, you can pick the one leg. Will show you what strategy you're about to trade and the P&L chart, and you can simulate that over time. You can simulate that by price of the underlying. And the coolest part is, as you tweak the legs, let's say you move the entire spread up by like 5 strikes, you can see the pre-trade P&L tools update dynamically as you drag and drop the spread up, or as you widen the spread, as you maybe make the spread narrower. So it's a great tool for fine-tuning your strategy, because you can see the P&L at the same time as the actual legs that you can edit.
And that's available on mobile as well, not just on the Legends.
So right now, that's actually on mobile. That's where most of our businesses today, but we're continuing to invest in Legend. So I think kind of the stage we're at is we're taking the best stuff on mobile and bringing it to Legend. And on the flip side, taking the best parts of Legend, which has sort of been the charting, and bringing it to mobile.
It is funny. You're kind of doing it backwards to most other brokers that we talk to. Most of them have built all the functionality into their legacy desktop app, and then they're porting over select elements to mobile. You're mobile first and foremost, and then you're bringing over the best parts of mobile to the Legends, Abhishek.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit of that, and we're starting to do the web to mobile too with the charts.
The other thing I like to ask a lot of brokers, again, it's not the sexiest thing, but people start encountering these when they start playing around with the platform a little bit, are the order types. You see a lot of brokerage firms just offer your kind of basic plain vanilla market and limit. What about some of the more exotic and indeed option-centric order types, like, for example, OCO, one cancels another? It's not the sexiest thing, but people love to use that type of order type, and it's not available everywhere. Can I sink my teeth into some of the more exotic order types over there at Robinhood, Abhishek?
We unfortunately don't have that right now, but it's something that's on our radar. I mean, customers are asking for it all the time, so we know we need to do it. And I actually think our Perps product in Europe has OCOs. So we've done some of the backbone work to bring it to options. So hopefully that's something we do pretty soon. Um, but yeah, I don't think it's not sexy. I think we can make it pretty cool.
Sometimes the plumbing behind the scenes stuff isn't the sexiest of things, but then people start trading options and they realize you're right. That stuff is sexy and it is important.
I think we can make the interface pretty cool. I think what our crypto team did in Europe is pretty cool for OCOs. So we'll try to do something great as well.
Interesting. Perps. We're just talking about that with the Coinbase folks yesterday. Maybe we'll get into that fun in a little bit as well. Maybe we'll title this episode, what do you think, Abhishek? Making OCOs sexy again. What do you think? Will that bring all the folks to the podcast
we can do
platform?
We'll give it our best shot.
All right. But, looking at the offering, we kind of detailed a lot of different things you folks are doing to kind of cater to that more hardcore options clientele. Do you think you guys are there now? Do you think the Robinhood platform can compete one-on-one for the high-end options client with some of the more, let's say, established legacy options platform that have been in the game for decades, Abhishek? Or you think there's still a little bit more tweaking you need to do under the hood?
I think from a competitive standpoint, we're getting there. I mean, we're one of the largest options platforms in the country, but I don't think we're anywhere near done. I mean, you just listed out a bunch of features. I think the best part about building for this customer base is that you're never done. So we don't want to be complacent. We're going to keep building things, the more common things like OCOs, but also trying more unique things that we think will help customers a lot. But I think we're there in terms of competitiveness, but we have a long way to go in continuing to build the platform out.
That's the other fun part of working in the option space. A, they will give you their feedback very, very readily. And B, you're right, you're never done. They're always going to demand more tools, more bells and whistles. So you're never done on that front. So you have a job for life is what I'm telling you, Abhishek.
Yeah,
you're never done.
Keeps us in a job.
Job security at the very least. Of course, the other thing a lot of the high-end options clients out there demand these days is portfolio margin, something that's missing from the Robinhood platform. Any insight on if or when we can expect that anytime in the future, Abhishek?
No insight on timing. It's something we're looking into. I mean, our margin business has been growing a lot over the last year since we dropped our rates to industry-leading margin rates. And we've been making a lot of improvements on the back end to improve the system, improve maintenance requirements. So hopefully we've made the platform a lot better for margin. And, portfolio margin is something we've heard about from customers and are always looking into the new opportunities.
Again, they will give you that feedback, whether you want it or not. And certainly portfolio margin is one of the things they will keep beating the drum about. But the other thing that they're very hot and bothered about these days is, of course, all things zero DTE. I'm curious, it does seem like that Venn diagram of the zero DTE option and the Robinhood customer, the clientele, those two Venn diagrams overlap quite a bit. You have a short duration, lower cost, lower point of entry type options trade. So it does seem like those two categories are two great tastes that taste great together. So what are your thoughts in general, first off, on the just overwhelming zero DTE explosion that we've seen in the options market over the last couple of years? And then B, from your perspective, you're building out the platform over there at Robinhood. What are some interesting maybe challenges this poses for you folks, or also maybe some opportunities you can look to leverage as you're developing new tools and new functionality?
I think when new products are made available to customers, as long as they have the right tools and the right education, I think they're useful. Like there's legitimate use cases to zero day traded options, like around earnings or if customers want to hedge. So it's a new tool in the toolbox for a lot of investors. I actually don't remember off the top of my head how much of our business is zero day traded, but it has posed unique product challenges like the simulator we talked about. It's very different when you use it for a near term option versus a long option, right? Long term option. For the simulators, if you're operating on a zero DTE, you want to be able to simulate it down to the minute or down to the 5 minutes as you get closer to expiry. But on a long dated option, you don't need that time granularity. So, it's forced us to build these products in ways that work for short dated options, but also long dated options. And I think we're in a good position to build the best product for both types of trading.
Yeah, zero DTE definitely poses challenges on the tool and platform front. We've heard from a lot of vendors out there, traditional platforms like, let's say, back testing used to use close to close data. Guess what? You can't use that in a 0-day environment. So a lot of the traditional things you used to lean on that people just took for granted in the space don't work in the 0-day environment. So yeah, from your perspective, it's got to be a little bit challenging to have to kind of reinvent the wheel all the time on the 0-day front.
Yeah, I think that's where we have a bit of a unique leg up, though, because we're building a lot of our tech from the ground up. So we're able to think about how does this work for this type of an option and how does this work for long dated and build the product very robustly for all these use cases.
Well, you mentioned education a few times. This is something I chatted with Steve Q down at the OIC conference a few times about as well. Kind of just the challenges of education for options. You mentioned kind of how important it is. We obviously do a lot of it here on our network, but it is a challenging thing. It seems like a lot of that has been abdicated to the brokers these days in the options space. We don't really see the exchanges doing as much or any education anymore. So it kind of falls on you guys. It's got to be a little bit challenging. We're talking about all the cool bells and whistles on the platform right now, but along with that has to go some sort of education. So from your perspective, where does education fit into all this? And what are you folks doing over there at Robinhood to make education foremost, especially from your perspective? You're talking about, being mobile first and engaging with that audience. That audience is living on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts and Instagram. They're living 30 seconds at a time. How do you engage that client on a little bit more meaningful, detailed, let's say, options risk topic that requires more than 30 seconds, Abhishek?
Yeah, I think that I think that for education, we pull it into a few categories. First, it's like first it's content oriented education of how do you learn about different strategies? How do you learn how multi-leg works versus single leg? Then there's the second category, which I think a lot of customers nowadays love to do more of, which is learn a little bit more by doing. So these simulator tools, I think, are really useful education tools, especially the pre-trade ones, because they can see how the value of an option decays over time, and they can see that play out in a real-world environment. Same thing, we have this options watch list product where customers can add contracts to their watch list and see how it would have performed had they bought it or sold it. So it's almost like paper trading in a way. So I think that one unique insight, at least that we've had on our customers, is that they want to learn interactively. So these simulator tools, this watch list tool, they're really powerful ways for them to learn and get more experience. They don't want to just read a bunch of content. We need interactive modules in the app, interactive content, video content. We've sometimes produced some videos on how to use Legend. There's a whole series of videos. So we're trying to what we've learned is interactive content and interactive modules are the best.
Well, we're coming up against it here, but a couple other things you mentioned that I do want to chat about before we roll out of here. I know some of you listening in the live, the Hot Options Report will be a little bit later today, obviously. A coming up in about an hour here on the network. But before we get there, Abhishek, you mentioned crypto, a lot going on the crypto scene. You mentioned perps. We were just chatting with the folks from Coinbase. Perps, kind of the hot thing here in the U.S. They've been around overseas for a while, but the crypto market also offers a lot of interesting opportunities on the product front. Like we mentioned, perpetuals. You don't really see those in traditional futures, but they do exist in crypto. I'm not sure if you work on the crypto product team, Abhishek, but any thoughts on some of the interesting opportunities that's offering over there at Robinhood on the platform side?
I don't know that much about perps, to be honest. So I probably can't help that much and answer that many questions. But we did recently roll out perps in the EU on crypto. So we think we've built a great product there and hopefully can bring some inspiration to the US product as well.
Well, the other hot area, of course, are these eventually, these event markets. We saw Kalshi explode onto the scene, Forecast EX right around the time of the election. So very opportune timing there. You folks have since jumped into the fray on the forecast side. In fact, I saw you just added NFL and college football to your prediction markets. What are your thoughts on the opportunities and maybe some of the challenges? I mean, there are folks out there. I was just talking to a broker the other day who shall go unnamed who think this is all heresy. Going beyond traditional financial markets in prediction is a terrible idea. It's going to lead people down a bad path. I think we should stay with products that lead into, let's say, indexes or other existing financial products. So there are clearly two minds of this product category, but clearly there's a lot of volume behind it as well. What are your thoughts on, again, some of the opportunities, maybe for you guys on the product side, and maybe also some of the challenges of these newly hot prediction markets, Abhishek?
I think it's still early. It's a new asset class. People are still getting accustomed to using them and trading in them and using them as a source of info. I think the two things that interest me most, honestly, are using these prediction markets as a source of information. One thing we see a lot of is our customers look at the event contract page, prediction markets page for the Fed decision. They may not necessarily be trading it, but they're using it as a source of information to see where does the market think the Fed is going to be with interest rates the next cycle. And that's a really, really critical, important signal that they can use for other investing decisions. So I think with prediction markets, there's a couple of elements. Obviously, there's the trading element. There's cultural markets, there's sports markets, there's economic markets. All those are really interesting to us. We want to have the most selection for active traders. But on the flip side, it's also a really, really interesting information tool for investors to make other investment decisions. So I think it's early innings, but it's super interesting.
All right, Abhishek, that means we are out of time here for today. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to catch our listeners up on all the latest bells and whistles on the options side over there at Robinhood. I'll tell Steve you did a good job. But before,
thank you. Maybe you can ask him to give me a raise too.
Oh, there we go. I've done that once or twice. I'll put in a good word for you, Abhishek. But before we go, we like to leave our audience wanting more. So we touched on a lot of cool stuff, a lot of interesting bells and whistles. But if there are any interesting hints, any interesting teases of what our listeners can look forward to coming down the pike from the Robinhood Options platform, now is the time, sir. The floor is yours.
Yeah. In about a month, I think it's September 9th or 10th, our team will be on stage at the second annual Hood Summit from Vegas, where we will be announcing our next slate of products for active traders. So I think that should be really interesting to especially your audience. It'll be live on X, YouTube, and in the Robinhood app.
There we go. So check it out, listeners. You don't need me to tell you at this point where to go to find Robinhood. I think most of you probably already have it on your phones, or at least you know where to go to find it. But stay tuned to that presentation if you want to hear a little more about the under the hood bells and whistles that I know a lot of you options hardcores love. And, of course, we'll stay tuned to that, Abhishek, and maybe we'll bring you back on afterwards so we can check in on some of those new offerings and how they're unfolding in the marketplace, sir.
For sure, man. Would be happy to.
All right, that's going to do it for us on the old Options Insider Radio interviews today. Not done on the network, though, not by a long shot. We'll be back in a little bit to talk about all the paper going up out there in the market today on the Hot Options Report. Then, of course, back with our usual array of content. So a triple header on the Options Bootcamp and Futures Rundown front tomorrow. At top of course, the Hot Options Report. Thursday, of course, back with our friends from CME to talk futures options this week in futures options. Then, of course, SIBO to talk the option block and our buddy, the Flow Master. Friday, we'll have some fun stuff coming at you on the on-demand side. Then we're back again next week with more great content and another great Options Insider Radio interview. See you then. And, of course, stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.